Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to yet another exciting halal food podcast. Today we've got one of the known faces in the UK halal sector. He's given us some time to talk about the operations of his abattoir, and we are hoping that people will get to learn more about our interaction with Rizvan Khalid today. So now, one of the objectives of this podcast is for businesses to learn from each other, for consumers to know what businesses are doing, and for the regulators to understand that, look, halal is not just about killing animals. Halal is having the welfare of the animal at heart, ensuring that the welfare is protected so that the product that is produced is good for Muslim consumption. What have you done in your abattoir that is over the regulation for you to improve animal welfare? So have you improved handling? Have you improved knife sharpness? What have you done differently that you hope that it will improve welfare and that other abattoirs who are not doing it could try to mimic what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, there's no single magic bullets. It's about improving every aspect of the whole process.
Yeah.
So, like I explained, from the way the animals move in, using their behavior to try to move them to the right position. And when the animals start to go into their V restrainers. So, V restrainers, for some of your viewers, is basically two conveyor belts which are shaped together like a V. So, when the animal goes in, the legs are dangling underneath, and he just sits there quite calmly. And sheep will follow each other into the V restrainer without minimal handling from the operator. So V restrainers are very good to take advantage of the sheep's flocking instincts to get the animals to move into there themselves. Once they're in there, then it's quite easy to either slaughter them without stunning or to apply the stun before the slaughter. And so you also have to try to minimize noise.
Yeah.
So, for example, we have a blood pump in there that used to be quite noisy when it was running. Sheep are in a new environment. You want to make it as calming as possible. You want people there that aren't shouting at them. They're just sort of moving them and trying to do everything as gently as possible. And it's very important to think about your people as well, because if your people are working too hard and you're not trying to make the job as easy as possible, that if they get tired, then they're more likely to get frustrated. They're more likely not to handle animals as calmly as you would like, particularly towards the end of the day. So changing people, trying to make the job as easy as possible for operators so that the last animal is handled as well as the first animal is very important. And for the slaughterman, it's that knife sharpness is really important for two elements. One is the animal welfare, that you slaughter the animal and it will, provided you cut the carotid arteries at the back, it'll for lamb, it'll lose consciousness very quickly. The science says about 7 seconds, but it can vary from 2 to 10 seconds depending on the breed. And the second advantage of a sharp knife is that actually it's less effort for the slaughterman, because the more blunter the knife is, you have to put more physical effort into slaughtering the animal. So it helps him in the longer run as well.
Yeah.
We did work before with Peter from New Zealand, and it's Anago knife sharpness equipment, which is a way of measuring the sharpness of knife. But operators can also have a very simple paper test, where they just take an A4 piece of paper and just run the length of the blade along the piece of paper to see that if it cuts smoothly and without much effort, then that's a very sharp knife. So having people coming in doing training and just sort of focusing on that sharpness is very important. And again, for the slaughterman as well, because he has to slaughter the animal, he has to then wash his knife, sterilize his knife, wash himself, steal his knife before he goes on to the next one. Designing that area in a way that is, from a time and motion perspective, again, it doesn't have to make 5 steps over there to go to sterilizer, 2 steps back over here. Have everything close to him, easy. Then he can get into a nice rhythm, and then maintain that consistency throughout the slaughter period.
Yeah, thank you, Rizvan. You mentioned about the time sheep take to lose consciousness. So you said if the blood vessels are cut properly, the sheep could lose consciousness within seconds. So I've seen 4 seconds to 20 seconds being cited elsewhere. Is this the same as cattle, or do we have difference? Does cattle take less time to lose consciousness or more time to lose consciousness? If that is the case, why is there a difference between the two?
Yeah, good question. And this comes back again to understanding the animal's anatomy and the science. In sheep, as well as cattle, they have a vertebral artery that goes from that when you cut their neck, it goes through the spine to the brain. But the one in sheep is incapable of supplying blood to the brain, whereas the one in cattle does supply blood to the brain. So when you do a ventral neck cut, which is a cut across the neck here with cattle, that vertebral artery along the back here is still supplying blood to the brain, which means that it takes longer for cattle to become unconscious. Now, there is a secondary slaughter method called nahar, which is basically a chest stick, which is used traditionally for camels, but it can be used for cattle as well. And that's where they cut it just above their heart in the chest. Anatomically, that has potential to cause unconsciousness very quickly because it cuts the vessels before the vertebral artery branches off from the heart. And so that is something that should be looked at. But because we don't slaughter cattle here in our premises, we've not done anything. We don't have the opportunity to do anything around that.
Thank you very much, Rizvan. This has been very, very educative session with you. So you talked about the thoracic sticking, which is the nahar. I understand it's used in some countries. That where a situation where you do the ventral neck cut first and then follow it 30 seconds later with the thoracic sticking. Do you think it's worth discussing this with scholars to see if
Yeah,
it is Sharia compliant?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely Sharia compliant, but it's just that it's not practiced. And so for cattle, because for camels it is practiced. Um, so it's just something. The first question scholars will ask was that, well, if we don't practice it, why are we considering it? But if we then explain that actually this will cause unconsciousness quicker in the animal, um, then it will be open for to look into it from the scholarly angle again.